Please welcome co-founder and president of Simon Data, Josh Neckes, for a presentation and then conversation moderated by Skift's creative strategy director, Matt Heidkamp.
Hi, everybody, and thanks to everybody who's on today. Really looking forward to this discussion and really diving into what's been an incredibly interesting topic for both our company as well as a lot of the clients that we work with in the travel and hospitality space, which is how can we look to leverage customer data in this incredibly unique moment to accelerate, the recovery of our industry and our businesses from, the impacts of COVID-19. I think, you know, the last couple years in travel have been as transformational as any. Increasingly, commoditization, competitive pressure, the entry and sort of participation of technology behemoths, has forced travel businesses to more than ever seek to build trusted relationships with their customers, in a way that meets their needs and helps them deliver the business outcomes that they're on the hook for. And when I spend time talking with executives, CMOs, chief technology officers at major travel companies, the refrain is the same. We have to move faster. We have to do more. And I think, in many spaces, COVID has acted as an accelerant towards digital transformation that was either already underway or planned. Obviously, the destructive effects of COVID in the travel space have been profound, and it's important that we acknowledge that for many of our colleagues, this has been an incredibly difficult time. However, we also have to look forward, as we're now partway through this crisis. We're starting to see, hopefully, some daylight on the other side. Limited travel is resuming. And the question that I get more than any other is, how can my company come out of this stronger? What are the things that I can do to build great relationships and remain competitive with given the current challenges that we face? And happily, I think there's some pretty simple things that folks can do, but it's important to really understand the moment that we're in. More than anything, being a great travel company today means having great relationships with your travelers and with your customers. And the thing that we have found over and over again, particularly as travel has moved, fully digital, with rare exceptions, is that great relationships are built out of integrated experiences. The brands who are doing this right really do three things. They integrate the ability to listen to the customer and the signals that they have, thinking about what's right for the customer, and speaking to them in a way that's consistent wherever they are. And I think, for the brands that we work with and for the brands that we talk to, being able to, in this unique moment, where customers' behaviors are changing so radically, where really no one can tell you what's going to be coming on the back of the COVID recovery. How will travel behaviors change? How will different cohorts emerge? What will travel comfort look like? What will travel frequency look like? Being able to listen to the customer, think about what's right for them, and speak to them consistently, is really what's going to make this happen. And to really drive this point home, I want to talk about, sort of an example of the canonical travel agent, which in many ways is what all of our businesses are attempting to emulate digitally. This experience of a trusted advisor providing meaningful travel guidance. So here we have Sarah, who's a traveler, and Jim, who's a travel agent. And when we think about the interactions that these two have, really it boils down to the same three things I just mentioned. Jim listens to Sarah's goals and priorities and needs as a traveler. He thinks about the right travel options for her, and he makes a recommendation, as to where she might go or the things that she might do. With every interaction that Jim has with Sarah as her travel agent, he learns more about who she is, what her goals or plans are when traveling, what her preferences are when she travels, how she likes to be treated when she travels, and the other things that are happening in her world, coronavirus being, the dominant factor right now. because he's able to learn and incorporate these concepts, he's able to listen with new understanding in those interactions. He's able to take her goals, preferences, and historical activities into account. And he's able to make recommendations to her about where she might travel, what she might do when she gets there, where she might stay, in ways that she's likely to receive well. And this cycle of interaction, this listening, thinking, and speaking consistently, this integration of those competencies, this is what leads to great outcomes for Jim as a travel agent. Sarah is more likely to refer people to Jim as an agent. She's likely to travel more frequently because she has confidence in the recommendations that Jim is going to make. She's likely to work with Jim even when the prices are higher, hugely critical in a commoditized industry. She's more forgiving and understanding when things go awry. And when traveling for business or pleasure, ultimately this leads to that Scott Galloway concept of customer monogamy, where she only books through Jim. This is very straightforward. This is understandable, and it's clear that from this type of interaction, Sarah and Jim are able to build a great customer business relationship, and it's easy. It's not hard to understand. The challenge, of course, comes when Jim has 14 million customers. Now this becomes hard, and as we think about listening to our customers, speaking to them consistently, and thinking about what's appropriate as a travel industry, in particularly in this moment with the heightened intensity, this is where the challenge is material. How many of you out there feel confident that you can listen to all of the signals that your customers are telling you about their emerging and changing travel preferences? How many of you feel confident that you're able to figure out that right recommendation for everybody in your customer set, when they need it in real time? And how many of you are confident that you're consistently speaking to your customers the same way wherever they are? Or, one of the common complaints I get from CMOs is, I don't even know what my customers are getting. I don't know what their experience is like, right? And so the problem is, and this is what we see as a technology business, you as a travel business have tools for listening, teams for listening. You have tools for thinking and teams for speaking. You have tools for sort of that have been siloed and built in ways that don't integrate. And this lack of integration means that we can't emulate the powerful interaction that the travel agent is able to have. And in this type of moment, it's so essential for us to be able to show up in a way that feels human and responsive, both for the customer experience and for us to have confidence in the offers and strategic decisions we're making within our own businesses. Jim is able to build these great relationships because these competencies are integrated. And the tooling that you have as a company really tends to fall within these buckets, as I was saying previously. And so, as a company, our focus is really all about trying to blend those things together and help folks do it. And it comes down to picking technology that can work at these intersections, building processes that can work across these intersections and break down these silos so that you're able to have those more human relationships, and then having the right people in place who are thinking, who are motivated, who are humanist in the way that they orient to driving a customer life cycle in this type of moment. And just as an illustrative example, when we think about what travel is going to look like in 2021, it's going to be diverse cohorts of people with different levels of comfort. Am I going to be higher anxiety traveling from South Carolina to Texas based on the policies that are in place, based on outbreaks, based on mask compliance? Being able to think geographically, being able to think in terms of the sort of different activities that might be open or closed when you get there, being able to think about cost, being able to think about exit strategies if things get worse. These are all things that travelers are already grappling with in the current environment, and it's only going to accelerate as more people return to travel. And so if you're not able to understand, minimally the things that your customers are thinking and feeling in this moment, and then bring back to them stories, advice, guidance that makes sense for them both pre-booking, post-booking, and during travel, and then after travel, you're going to be behind. And you're going to be failing the customer in a way that makes it very challenging for you to be competitive, particularly as folks are looking at this as a disruptive moment to take greater share of market. So, I think, again, when we think about these signals, they're diverse. They're hard to detect, and I think for many of the customers that we talk to, it's people are better at worse at each of these. I think doing that sort of self-assessment to understand where you are has to be the first step. An audit of your capacity to listen to, think through, and respond to customer signals is the number one thing that I would recommend to folks, in the audience today. So that's sort of where we are, and I'd love to sort of open it up now for questions and conversation.
Thanks so much for sharing that presentation, Josh. We really appreciate your perspective on this. And I think, it's so interesting hearing you talk about these signals and creating a cycle of interactions. But I'd really love to maybe put some of those puzzle pieces together here. Can you give us an example of how you're working with travel companies to leverage this kind of data, create those feedback loops, and some of the actions that they're taking in terms of implementing this data to make better decisions?
Yeah, totally. As always, examples are probably the most illustrative way to understand this sort of thing. So I'm really fond of our friends at TripAdvisor. They're a company that we work with, and they have a super savvy, customer relationship marketing team, as well as sort of a larger like travel strategy team. Their business touches hotels, experiences, flights, as well as just reviews. And I think in many ways they're emblematic of a lot of travel companies in the sense that while they have what makes them unique, a lot of the booking patterns and customer exploration patterns are the same. And for them, they've always had strategies and goals around being able to take you from pre-booking to all the way through to post-trip, so that if I'm booking a trip to Milan, while I'm in research mode, the emails that I'm getting, the ads that I'm seeing, the experience that I'm having on site is adapting and providing things to me that are relevant based on the level of luxury that I'm looking for, based on the types of experiences that I've been interested in previously. As I move through the booking phase, now they have hard data on when I'm going to be in a particular location. So 20 weeks out from the trip, what are some things that I should know? 5 weeks out for the trip, what are some things that I should be thinking about based on what I've booked? Have I booked a hotel? Have I booked a car? Maybe they have that information, maybe they don't. And based on their level of certainty around those data points, they want to change what they send me and what they offer. And based on how I engage with what they send me, am I interested in? Am I clicking on? Am I researching cars? Am I researching experiences? Have I looked at different hotels in a place where I've already booked? Maybe I'm unsatisfied with that hotel. They want to adapt that life cycle. Once I'm in location, now it's the time to be sending real-time offers, additive value, based on where you are. Here's a deal on, drinks at a local bar, right? And then once I'm done, they want to understand, how was the trip, what worked for me, so that they can carry that through, and also get data on how their partners are performing. So that's a steady state, savvy travel company that's handling it correctly. Let's put that in the context of the current environment, right? It's like we are now layering on all of these different signals, some of which I've listed out here on the slide, in terms of like COVID risk, in terms of changing regulatory environments, in terms of is this a place that's friendly for people with our particular passport? What happens if there's a shutdown while I'm there? What are my recourse options? So now, not only does TripAdvisor have to account for these things as incremental signals and be able to adapt, but they also have to be able to provide information interpolated with information that makes me still excited to go on the trip in the first place. And for me, like, that is the challenge that travel businesses today are going to have to face. And the ones that do it correctly have an amazing opportunity to humanize themselves and really differentiate. And the ones that don't are going to be left behind, or going to be seen as tone deaf or not responsive to the current environment.
And I really do love this idea of, as we go into 2021, making travel more human, more humane, more responsive to those needs of customers, really valuing them on a more personal human level. So beyond that technology, Josh, what do travel brands need to be thinking of as we move into 2021?
Yeah, I mean, there's no travel brand that you'll talk to today that isn't thinking about all of the fundamentals of their business, including, burn and, revenue return and projections around demand and all of those things, which we know super well. I think, what we've seen with our with the folks that we know really well. We work with Wyndham, for instance, and this is a business that has multiple business lines and sort of different layers of strategic thinking on these things, but they're planning cross-functionally. They're looking at all aspects of perceived demand, deep forecasting. Do we have the right systems in place to take advantage of when demand is returning in a way that's meaningful? How do we keep existing demand and nurture it? And how do we make sure that we're being responsible and thoughtful in the ways that we engage? And I think so the big thing, the watchword that continues to come to mind for me is that integrated cross-functional approach. And just like with digital transformation, I've been in executive sessions for the last 10 years where all people talk about is cross-functionality, digital transformation, right? And it's like, yet for some reason, it has not really worked. We sort of remain often in our silos. And I think one of the forcing factors of COVID is that because it's such an extreme event, particularly in spaces like fitness or travel, it's forcing businesses to really develop new ways of working because it's existential that they do so. That would be, I think, making sure that you have the right processes that are cross-functional, and then making sure that you have people that are open to and aware of that and are welcoming a challenge in this moment, because this is not an easy moment. It is easy if you are in a space like travel to feel discouraged or minimally, that this moment is like, uncertain for you and for your career. That's something that I hear a lot, even from senior people. And I think, the reality is that there will be a massive return to travel. I'm expecting an explosion of travel on the back of this once, the vaccine is rolled out and things are, returning back to a normal state, because that pent up demand will be so great. I think it may change a little bit by country or by risk factor and so forth, but I think travel is going to be an amazing space to innovate, an amazing space to challenge old assumptions and old ways of doing things. So I'm excited to be partnering deeply with the industry and looking forward to what's next.
Well, absolutely, Josh. And thank you so much again for joining us here at Skift Global Forum. I think that's all the time we have, but I would really encourage everyone, if this session resonated with you, please go check out Simon Data's showcase area in the tab over here to learn more about them. They have a ton of great information and resources available there. Josh, thank you for the time today.
Thanks.